Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at SheKnowsArsenal. Oh man, I really want to wear my glasses right now, but the glare is like a little intense. Let me see if I can like move over here or something. Maybe I need to wear my glasses, you guys. I can't see. Yeah, the glare is too much, isn't it? It's fine. So welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. There's about 20 of you guys watching already, which is amazing. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Yeah, so we're going to be talking more about Ben White today on Transfer Listed. So look, I just got done like talking in a Twitter space about Ben White, but it's the most breaking news for today. So we're going to talk about it some more. And obviously here on SheKnowsArsenal, I love to, get your guys' comments up there and hear all of your opinions and all that kind of stuff. So let's just go ahead and get started. So David Ornstein, he tweeted this morning, he said that Arsenal are moving closer to an agreement with Brighton for Ben White. Brighton want guaranteed $50 million. Arsenal are offering $45 million plus $5 million in add-ons. Face-to-face talks have already taken place and negotiations can continue over add-ons, payment structure, etc. No other bidders yet. There's also reports coming from Sky Sports and Brighton correspondents confirming the closeness of the deal. So you guys, this looks like something that's going to get done. They've also spoken about Lokonga being, hey, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Yeah, they're also talking about Lokonga being the next guy on the list. I think he's on vacation right now, but they're looking to close up that deal as well. And Mavropanos is going to stay at Stuttgart, for a loan with an obligation to buy for somewhere between like 5 and 7 million. So it looks like business is getting done. Lucas Torreira is also looking like he's on his way to Lazio. I just saw reports that, we're trying to figure out a structured payment where they'd have to pay quite a bit up front and then the rest of it a little bit later. But his will be an obligation to buy too. And so what are you guys thinking about kind of like the way our transfer business is shaping up at the beginning of the window? Again, the window has pretty much just opened. If you kind of look, you don't really see like a lot of other teams doing business. So, take that into consideration. I know we have anxiety, but it's not like everybody else is doing things and we're not. But it looks like things are moving along. I expect the Granit Xhaka to Roma deal to get done. So what is your initial thoughts on just kind of how things are shaping up? Let's see. Richard is saying we are getting robbed. No way he's worth that. Is this the case? What is Rob Holding worth? Dubber Ducky says, nice glasses. Thank you so much. Jordan Shipper says, White, Saliba plus Gabriel Marie seems good to me. Arul LaSelvin says, how was Maguire worth 80 then? That's the market. I think Ben is better. Sean says, I have no problem with getting Ben White. Hopefully this is the start of the dominoes falling. Seawalder says, you think Holding is going to be up for sale? I'm hoping so. Sorry, Rob. And Shamoy is saying another $75 million like rated center back. Yay, come on, you Gunners. So Yeah, I sense the anxiety. I get it, but at the same time, you know, it looks like we're trying to install a strategy. And I know a lot of people are trying to say that this signals no strategy, but I actually would say the exact opposite. Everybody that we've been legitimately linked to is relatively proven, whether it's in the Premier League or they've been in another league. They're proven, they're not newish players. They're between the ages of 23 and 26, which is pretty much that age range that we don't have a lot of players in that age range at Arsenal. And they have good upside, meaning that if we wanted to sell them on, as long as they're performing good, we would be able to sell them on for a decent fee. So for me, it's kind of like it is what it is. I get that Ben White is not worth 50 million. I'm just going to say that straight up. He's not. Most English players are not worth what they end up being sold for because of English tax. Like, we know this. We know that this is the reality of the market, right? So his transfer market value is about 35 million. We'll be paying 50, probably because he's on the English national team and he's English. So I get he's not worth that, but most players that you pay for in the Premier League, and especially if they're British, we tend to pay more. That's just the reality. It's not just us spending that. That's how things kind of go. Now you're probably thinking, well, we could go, overseas or in Europe and find somebody, for less. But what comes with players that come from other leagues is adaptation. We spent 45, 50 million to pay the release clause for Thomas Partey, who is a world-class midfielder in his own right. And, he struggled adapting to the Premier League. Thiago struggled to adapt to the Premier League. You think about the difference in the way that Thiago performed for Liverpool last season versus Diego Jota. Diego Jota was able to step straight into their team and make a difference, and Thiago really struggled, and he's a world-class midfielder. So what I think Arsenal is trying to avoid is that adaptation year because we can't afford it. We have to be in Europe next season or the season after next, So if you can take away that factor of needing a whole season to adapt to the Premier League, then I think you're doing something smart. So, but if you have to do that, you have to be prepared to pay more. And I don't think Arsenal would pay more for Ben White knowing that they couldn't address other areas. That's the other bit of anxiety that's coming in besides, how much he's not worth that is, so how is this going to affect other signings? You know, it just depends on how things unfold. I can't say without a shadow of a doubt that I know for sure that they're going to go ahead and address other areas, you know, even though they're spending 50 million on a defender. But what I will say is that they have no choice. Arsenal, we're not a Champions League team anymore that's able to go through summer windows and not address key areas because we're still better than a lot of other teams. Like, we are vastly underperforming. So they actually have no choice but to stick their hand in their pocket and address multiple areas. Whether you think center back is a priority or not, you know, I'm not convinced that spending the 50 million on Ben White necessarily means that we're not going to prioritize other things. That doesn't rock with me. It just doesn't. And just because it's the first signing that looks like it's getting done doesn't necessarily mean that it's the main priority. The bigger signings, the ones that probably need a little bit more negotiation, maybe you have to convince the player a little bit more, will probably take until the end of the window. So we have to take those things into consideration. And I could come back at the end of the window and be raging, and you guys could be saying, I told you so. But nothing about what reliable journalists have been saying over the last couple of weeks leads me to believe that if we buy Ben White, then that means that no attacking midfielder is coming in, no center midfielder is coming in, a lesser quality attacking midfielder or center midfielder will be coming in because we spent so much on a center back. So I get the anxiety, but no, I just don't see it. Like, you guys, I really don't see it because Arsenal Football Club have got to get it together. They cannot afford to mess this up, So what are you guys saying? Sean says doing things differently this time in the transfer window. Yo-Yo says assuming White can play higher up the pitch than Holding, this should be a good signing. Yo-Yo, that's a really good point. I think we spend a lot of time thinking about how much it costs, or what the fee is. But in terms of a player profile, this is somebody who would replace David Luiz. And in our Twitter spaces that just ended just before I came on here, the Euro expert Alex was saying that he doesn't even think Saliba is ready to play for Arsenal Football Club right now. We're under pressure, and this is a neutral. This is somebody who doesn't support Arsenal and watches League on a regular basis. So this is somebody who knows about Saliba and said from his own mouth that Saliba might not be ready. So, if you could have White step in and we're not having to deal with maybe Holding and his lack of technical ability on the ball, I think that that's a good thing. I mean, I don't know how we could look at it as anything but a good signing. I can see the Saliba aspect, I can see the fee aspect, but if you're telling me that we would start with Ben White as a right-sided center back versus Holding, then I'm like, okay, yeah, sign me up. Let's see. Yo-Yo says players across Europe are overpriced. It's the cost of being viewed as a big club. It is what it is. I mean, there's also the aspect that Arsenal Football Club is not really going to be able to go into the market and get these, people think Arsenal has money, so we're not going to get cut price deals. It just is what it is, you guys. And it's funny because it's been like these tweets have been kind of going around like, if Ben White's name was Benjamin Blanc, we probably wouldn't be questioning it because he's English. So we automatically feel like he's overpriced, meaning he's not worth it, meaning he's not a good player. And I just feel like we need to think about it a little bit more rationally. And Ben White is a good player. If he was linked with anybody else, if he, you know what I mean? Like if he was linked with anybody else, I feel like we'd be thinking about it differently. We let rivals get in our heads and say that he's not a good player, but I was even listening to KJ, who's a Manchester United fan, on the terrace, and he was saying a move like Arsenal getting Ben White versus going into the market and getting an older center back like a David Luiz is a lot more worrying as a rival. Us actually getting like Ben White is more of a worry for a rival. Like, you know what I mean? So if the rivals can see it, if other teams can, like, you know what I mean? If neutrals can see it, then why can't Arsenal fans just accept that Ben White is a good player? It would be a good signing, and it is what it is. Maybe that's just me. Oliver says we need to get homegrown quota up to fit in with the new requirements after Brexit. Chris YT says there's no excuse for Arteta now. Yeah, that's very true. When you bring in players that are ready to go, we'd be expecting him to get the most out of those players from the very beginning. Thomas will be over his adaptation. I think Pepe has gotten to a good point in his progression and his development. So knowing that, and also if they were to make sure that they address the other positions, center midfield, creative midfield, then you would expect there not to be any excuses for Arteta, and we can make a good conclusion to whether we should continue on with him. There won't be all those additional factors of no fans in the stands, pandemic, not having the right players, all those types of things. Haji says Thiago Silva did pretty good when he came from France. Thiago Silva, I mean, he's an experienced player. He should do well. But we're talking about your Jules Koundés, your Tabsobas, these players that are similar in age, similar in profile, would cost you probably more than it would cost you to get in Ben White and them having that year of adaptation. I'm not convinced, that they would come straight in and not have to adapt. And I'm also not sure that they're that much more experienced than Saliba, coming from a very similar type leagues. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Thiago Silva is like a world-class defender. He should be able to step in, but that's not really what we're talking about here. We're not talking about Thiago Silva, who also, you have to remember, is coming into a Chelsea side full of really good players. David Luiz was pretty similar to Thiago Silva, came to Arsenal and flopped for the first year because this team is not similar. So I don't think Thiago Silva is a really good example. Let's see. Dubber Ducky says, I wonder if we will get a right back. I think we need one, but can't see any good ones on the market. You don't see any good ones on the market? I do think there are good right backs in the market, but maybe, maybe Ben White would play right back. In some instances, maybe he would play midfield. We don't really know. He's also somebody that can play multiple positions. And it's not like that he can do a job there. It's not like putting Xhaka at left back. It's he can competently, successfully play in those positions. So it is what it is. I think there are good right backs out there, and I would prefer us to just get a right back and not bring in Ben White to play right back. But I do see good ones on the market. You could look at somebody like Riddle Baku. I'm sure if you go to Wolfsburg and you offer them what he's worth, you could get him. There are good right backs out there. So Olivier says Basuma disappeared from the rumors news. You guys, I'm not sure what's going on with Basuma. I did do 2 different shows about Camavinga, and I feel like his decision to leave Rennes has made Arsenal maybe take notice, and maybe that's what's holding it up. He has to, either re-sign with Rennes by the 28th of June, or he'll be out on the market. And from different reports from reliable journalists, we are interested in contact with him and trying to see if we can get a deal done. That would lead me to believe that Basuma is the second choice. I personally feel like just go for Basuma and get it done. But I feel like that may be the holdup with Basuma, but that's just me, assuming. Let's see. Yo-Yo says, Saka, ESR weren't ready until they were ready. Wenger would throw players into the deep end. Arteta's cowardice held back the side last season. We must be braver. I tend to agree with that, but, I'm still not convinced that Saliba is quite at the level that Bukayo Saka and ESR are at, in terms of being able to come into this team and make a difference, especially when we're talking about a player very close to the goal. His mistakes will not be not scoring a goal. It will be kicking the ball in the back of our net. So although I do think that we need to be a little bit braver, and, I wouldn't be upset if we integrated Saliba into the side this next season. But if you're telling me that, maybe there's a longer term plan for him to get some Premier League experience before he comes in and he replaces Holding when he becomes homegrown next season, I'm actually more interested in that, because then I don't have to go through, Arsenal fans slating Saliba because he makes mistakes that most young players would make. People outside of people that don't like Arsenal, you have to remember, consider the source. People that don't like Arsenal, journalists and outlets that don't like Arsenal are always going to paint the narrative as Saliba's this ready-made star that should be starting for Arsenal, and they're making a mistake. Whereas I've heard from other people who don't have an agenda against Arsenal that he's not ready. So there's no reason to rush him. If we could bring in somebody to bridge the gap, and then Saliba can come in the season after with some Premier League minutes under his belt. Again, we're Arsenal. Fofana's playing at Leicester. If he makes mistakes, they go away like that. If Saliba makes a mistake, it'll follow him the entire season. So I think Saka and ESR are a little bit different because they're, used to England. I think they're a little bit further along in their development. Saliba, to me, seems like somebody who may need one more year of development, so we'll see. Josh says, I would love to get Neves. Yeah, Neves is a good player. And if he came into Arsenal, I wouldn't, capitulate. I do think I would prefer Basuma, but, those links have gone kind of quiet too with the Neves thing. So we'll see how that whole thing shakes out. Joel says Silva struggled at the start of the season. He did. And a lot of Chelsea's kind of rocky moments are kind of glazed over because they ended up winning the Champions League. I don't think half of the players that they brought in last season, most of whom coming from other leagues, actually had a great effect on that team in the league. They really didn't. Havertz, Werner, Ziyech, Thiago Silva, they all struggled, to really make a difference in that team. It really was the players that were already kind of there holding that team together. Let's see. Matt G says, I think Arteta seems him in the same mold as Tierney, sees him in the same mold as Tierney, who can play left back and left-sided center back. Yeah, for sure. And the way that we play now, with Chambers kind of playing like that inverted right back / a right-sided center back, that could be a good option for Arsenal moving forward, to allow Tierney to do what he does best, which is bomb up the left-hand side without having to really worry about him having to come back, because we have cover. So I think Ben White is definitely there for his versatility, and he's Premier League proven, ready to go. I mean, we rate Bielsa's opinion so highly. He rates him very highly. And I think moving to Brighton, a team that really struggled, may have changed the narrative around him. But when he was at Leeds, he was the best thing since sliced bread. People loved Ben White when he was at Leeds. And so I think we have to take into consideration that although we may be, reluctant based on the price and all that kind of stuff, this guy has a lot of good qualities that we could use at Arsenal. Yep. Haji says Fofana came from France and Roger trusted him and gave him a lot of confidence. He also came into the side because Soyuncu and Johnny Evans were injured. He didn't come straight into the squad because that was the plan. They had a lot of injury issues from the very beginning, with Soyuncu being, injured. So, and he was also brought in to play with Johnny Evans, who has vast Premier League experience. We don't actually have that in our team. He would be playing next to Gabriel. And if he's not playing next to Gabriel, he'd be playing next to Marie. So I don't necessarily feel like that's very similar. Then towards the end of the season, they played in a back five / a back three. So he had two people really holding him down. His mistakes were being kind of glossed over because he had the protection of two more senior people in that back line. So yes, it's about trusting him, but it's also about having the right environment and circumstances to allow them to thrive. And again, I'm not sure that Arsenal has that with Rob Holding / Gabriel / Marie next to him. It's not similar to Johnny Evans and Soyuncu. And also, again, it's Leicester and this is Arsenal, and the expectations of Arsenal are completely different than Leicester. They could easily come in 6th, 7th place next season and nobody would bat an eye. But we need to be somewhere between 6th and 4th, or 4th and 6th. We need to be somewhere up there. So, and really we should be in the Champions League or trying to fight for those places. So again, the circumstances around both clubs are completely different, and the environment, is just different. Let's see. Ooh. Yo-Yo says Saliba should leave for his own good. Tired of Arteta's disrespect. Hey. Billy says spot on. I also think Ben White could be an option for DM. Newman says I like Jess's funky new glasses. Thank you. I can't see and I cannot wear my contacts right now. I can't do it today. I can't. Robert says, I understand everybody has a price, but isn't worth 50 million for Ben White isn't 50 million for Ben White too much? I don't really know why. I mean, that's how much you pay for English center backs, Premier League proven center backs of the ages between 23 and 25. I don't think we've ever went out in the market and got somebody that fit the profile. So maybe we're not used to seeing prices like this. But again, Nathan Ake went to Manchester City for 40 million last summer. You know what I mean? And he's not even as good as Ben White, in my opinion. And he was a backup, so I think he's also somebody that can play multiple positions too, but that's the price of center backs now. And I know that it's well, Ben White, well, ask yourself, if somebody was well, we're going to buy Jules Koundé for 60 million, would you have a different response because he's from Europe and maybe he has a different narrative around him? Ben White is a good center back. He's about worth maybe 30 to 40. Brighton also doesn't have to sell him, which comes into the conversation as well. And again, he's British and he's in the English national team. So although, yeah, we're probably paying more, everybody pays more for English players that are in the English national team. I mean, I think Chelsea bought Chilwell for 50 million, so it's just kind of what it is, but I'm not necessarily convinced that if you went to Europe and tried to find something similar, that you'd be paying any less, because Koundé was going to cost you 60, 70 million. Tapsoba is going to cost you 50 to 60 million. So, and I'm also not convinced that they're that much better than Ben, Let's see. Usopp says, and thank you for your super chat. I love that. Thank you so much. Says Ben White is quality. Why are some fans upset about us signing quality players? Get mad if we are signing bad players. Wait until the window is closed before we judge. I'm kind of there too, Usopp. I guess I'm not seeing like why we're so up in arms about it, because it's not like he's a bad player. And like even fans from rival teams are saying that this is a good signing, this is a good player. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know why Arsenal fans can't see it, that he fits a lot of the qualities for the profile that we would want. And then because of that, his price is what it is. But we know that we have to pay more for British players. We know that somebody who's in and around the English national team is going to cost more, and if it's not our money, then why are we worried about it? And nothing up until this point makes me believe that buying him means that we're not going to get, the attacking midfielder or central midfielder. And it also doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get less quality in those positions either. There's about 99 of you guys watching right now, which is crazy. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. This is amazing, you guys. Never thought I would spend like 2 or 3 hours talking about Ben White, but there's so many, different opinions, and I think everything is valid. I understand the anxiety, but I'm just giving from my perspective. I just think this is a good signing. It is what it is. Billy says, I low-key feel we will have a really great transfer window. Don't say that too loud. If you say that, you think we're going to have a good transfer window. Everybody will read you every single transfer window that didn't go well, even though that wasn't with this administration or with this executive group, And also, can we normalize not, what do we want to call it? Not, attributing past, mistakes in transfer windows to this new administration. Like, I don't know about you, but and Edu are not like responsible for what happened when Raul and Ivan Gazidis and all of them were here in Arsenal. So let's give them a chance to show us what they can do in a real transfer window. The pandemic window was not really one that I think that we should be like, okay, this is how they're going to operate. So let's give them a chance. Like, let's see what they have to give. I would say, let's just go into it a little bit more positively and see what they can do, and not, make them pay for what the last administration did. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So Ruban says, I don't have high expectations. I'm just going to see what they do. So far, Ben White is a good start. Let's keep it rolling. That's a good way to think about it, and let's keep maybe expectations a little bit low and just hope for the best, Rampur says, this is a good start to the transfer window. White will help us strengthen our defense. AK Gunner says, disagree. Ben White will flop and Arsenal will finish outside the top 6 again, and Arteta will get sacked by Christmas. That's probably the most negative view that you could possibly have, but it's still valid. If that's what you believe, then hey. Richard says, Ben White is a luxury cosmetic purchase. We need to be spending first on our midfield. But see, this is the thing, is like, just because this is the first signing doesn't mean it's the priority. It's the one that can get done the quickest. Just because, like, that doesn't mean we're not negotiating for other players in the midfield. You know what I mean? It's like, we're just assuming that because this is the first one that we're doing, it's the most important. And that's not how transfers work. Usually the bigger signings, the one that are more important, that you're going to spend more money on, actually happen towards the end of the window because they're harder to get done. So I don't think him being first means that we're not spending money on our midfield. And if Basuma and James Maddison were to come in on the last day of the window, does it really matter that Ben White came first? We're assuming that they're taking the 50 million, like we have 100 million and we're taking 50, and that means there's only 50 for what's left. We don't know what, we have to spend. Nobody reliable has said that getting Ben White means we're not getting anything else. It's a priority for the club, and whether we like it or not, that's the reality. Center back is a priority. but also attacking mid, fullbacks, and central midfield are also priorities, and that's known. So I'm not really understanding why getting him first means we're not spending money on the midfield. And why does the midfield need to come first? It's about getting it done within the transfer window, regardless as if it's on the first day that it opens or the last. I just don't really, I'm not understanding why this one being first means that all is lost. Like, I don't get it. Braiser says, funnily enough, I haven't heard the rumor of us being broke. I mean, nobody is saying that we have no money. And usually if we don't, it's being reported by everybody, PSF says Arsenal fans are acting like they don't want top players. Demsec says David Luiz has left the club, needs a decent center back. I mean, let's see. Olivier says Ben White with Basuma add-on. GK says, I don't think Ben White is much of an upgrade from Holding, but my opinion, we'll see. I mean, it was hard for me to kind of see it at first too. Like, I had to go back, look at videos, not just him in compilations, but him playing for Brighton, and to see what the profile could do to improve us. And yes, I don't think defensively he's that much better, but this signing is not about defense. It's about our offense and being able to build out of the back. And I can say 100% with certainty that Ben White is better on the ball and more technically gifted than Rob Holding, so that's what matters to me. Matthew D'Souza says, just how much are we getting for Saliba, or is that 27 million down the drain? I mean, no, we're not. I mean, nobody said that we're selling Saliba. From what's reported, it would be a loan, not really a sale. So if we were to loan him out, it'd probably be to a Premier League club to get him, the experience in the Premier League at a level that's not under pressure Arsenal, so I don't think it's 27 million down the drain until we sell him for less than what he's worth. And we're nowhere near that just yet. Samuel says, the only thing I'm worried about is our outgoings right now, which I feel will hinder the incomings and keep us from changing systems possibly next year. Yeah, hopefully they're able to get the players out that they need to, so I don't know. Hopefully they can get it done. But it looks like as of now, it's like loans with obligations. And again, we have to remember that Europe is skint. Like, they don't have money, so we have to keep that in consideration when we're feeling like Xhaka should go for 35 million. Mavropanos, who transfer market value is about 6 million, and we want way more for that. Like, we have to take those things in consideration as well. Billy says Basuma is not our first option. Camavinga is. If we can't get Camavinga, we'll get Basuma. As simple as that. Basuma wants to join. Fee is not expensive. Brighton interested in Nketiah. Those are all really good points. T. Wilder says, I've completely come around to the Ben White deal. I freaked out at first because I thought it was our budget gone. Exactly. I understand that. I felt the same way. I was like, well, if we don't have the money, then why will we do this? But I believe we have more, and it's been reported by multiple people that we have more than what people originally thought. And trust me, if we were broke, we would know it, because everybody and their mom would be telling us every single day that we're broke. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's, I understand, where the anxiety is coming from. But before we get out of here, one thing that I do want to say is, what happens when he does sign, which looks very likely at the moment? What happens after he signs? What needs to happen is we need to cut this out and not, we cannot transfer that over to aggression towards him. That's what we tend to do when we don't like the signing. Anything that he does is way more dramatic than it needs to be. And making a mistake will automatically be, this is why we should be playing Saliba. And I think if and when he does sign, we need to back him, because he's an Arsenal player. He'll be an Arsenal player. And I would love to see the Arsenal fan base at least get behind the players in a way that makes sense. I understand we criticize them and we analyze them, but ultimately, if he signs for Arsenal, I would hope that we can all get behind him and hope that he does well, and not hope that he does poorly, so that we can be right. I don't want to be right, Like, you know what I mean? I want Arsenal to win games, you know? Nikki says, hey, Jess, if he signs, then we will back him. Otherwise, he will only fail. Sean says, I agree with you on that, Jess. Demsec says, great. I will support him and wait for the next signings. Oliver said we wouldn't be paying all of that money up front, which will allow us to make more signings. Bowie the Cat says Saliba has 3 years left. And that's also something we have to take into consideration, is that like he doesn't have to really go anywhere at the moment. I mean, if you tell me like right now that Saliba will get loaned out and he'll still, you know, be at Arsenal the season after, homegrown player, replace Rob Holding, then I think it's fine. But yeah, he does have 3 years left on his deal, so he still has some time. Matt G says fans can't do a Pepe with Ben White. It's not his fault that he cost 50 million. Don't bring it up every time he makes a mistake. Matt G, that's a really, really good point. AK Gunner says, I hope I am wrong, not trying to be negative. I will give all of our signings a fair chance. That's all that I really, you can think it's the worst signing in the world, but once he signs on the dotted line, we have to back him. Like, especially with fans going back into the stands, you know, let's try to support him a little bit, like, you know, if he does come in. And that goes with all of our signings and the players that play for Arsenal now. You know what I mean? Demsec says, I'd like Saliba to be loaned out to a Premier League club until January. That'd be cool. You know, I don't really have an issue with him being loaned out. If there's a long-term plan for him, then I'm okay with that. Francis says, if White signs for 50 million, I will order my Arteta out sign. Feel free. Nick says, if we need to get some of our transfer targets secured early as possible. So I just hope that they close the deal. Exactly. So, okay, you guys, we're going to end it there. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I feel like there was a lot of new faces. So if this is your first time, please remember to subscribe to the channel and like the video. It really helps the channel out. We'll be back at 2 p.m. UK time to do something different. Hopefully I can talk about something else. It's really difficult to do 2 streams a day, but I'm going to keep it up, of course. You know, so I'll be back at 2 p.m. UK time, probably for some like live Q&A type of thing. I'll try to see if I can get Souls or George to come on with me. Yeah, we'll talk then. So make sure, again, like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter at @It'sJessEnio and at SheKnowsArsenal, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye, y'all.